So, I don't do a lot of review videos, but a few of you asked me to talk about the Canon RF 35mm f1.8. And because I basically do everything you guys ask me, I'll do it today. Actually, now that I think about it, I also bought this lens because a few of you suggested it for my Canon R5. I guess I really do everything you guys ask me. Okay, the Canon RF 35mm f1.8. I've been using it for 2 weeks now, something like that, and overall it's a great lens. I really like it, so thank you for suggesting it to me. I don't remember exactly who it was, but if you're watching right now, thanks man. So yeah, overall a really good lens. A lot of positive things to talk about, a few negative points. I'll go over photography and video, and I'll start with build quality. For me, build quality is just as important as image quality because a lens is a tool I use to do my job. Now, build quality is not just how strong a lens is, but also how it feels to use it. The 35mm is one of the cheapest lenses for the Canon R system. Actually, I think it is the cheapest one, yeah. Anyway, but that means that you can't expect the same build quality as other lenses that cost 4 times more. So most of it is plastic, except for the mount, but it doesn't feel cheap. It's good quality plastic, it looks good, and it's not too light or heavy. On my Canon R5, it actually feels really good. Well balanced, it's a great combination. So while it's not top-notch build quality, for the price, I think it's in the US $500. It's really good. The only slightly negative is that the zoom ring is not super smooth. I really do like the extra control ring. It's something only the RF lenses have, and you can program this ring to control aperture or ISO or all kinds of other things. It's nice to be able to customize your camera like that, and it adds a lot of extra possibilities. Another slightly negative point is that the lens extends when focusing, and I don't know, it just looks a bit silly. And to me, it also feels like it's something that can potentially break or bump into something. I don't know, but it's definitely not a reason not to buy this lens. Oh, and it doesn't have weather sealing. All in all, build quality is what you'd expect from a $500 lens, maybe even a little bit better. Look, I'm not a pixel peeper. If I have to zoom in to 100 or 200% to see some chromatic aberration or whatnot, I really don't care. If it doesn't bother me when looking at an image normally, then it's good for me. Now, that being said, the Canon 35mm is pretty damn good for that kind of money. Sharpness and contrast is great, even in the corners, and when you stop down to, let's say, 2.8, it goes from great to excellent. It's a 35mm 1.8, so you should expect some vignetting wide open and also some distortion, but these days your camera corrects all those things, so you don't really need to worry about it. I didn't even check what this lens does when I turn off those corrections in my camera because, I mean, what's the point? This lens also has macro capabilities, so you can get really close to your subject. That's great for both photographers and videographers. I love it to shoot some B-roll of objects or products, for example. It's nice and sharp, and the depth of field, of course, super shallow. And that brings us to the quality of the out-of-focus backgrounds. Overall, most backgrounds look really nice. The out-of-focus areas are nice and smooth in most cases. Some more busy backgrounds look a little bit less pleasing, but overall, it's not that big of a deal. So image quality is great, and in combination with that 35mm focal length makes it a great all-round lens. 35mm is one of my favorite focal lengths. Some of you probably know that I traveled the world for 2 years shooting with the equivalent of a 35mm on my medium format camera. If you want to start with a prime, 35mm is probably the best choice. Well, I'm filming this video with it, so this is what it looks like. I've also used it to shoot some B-roll and cinematic sequences. I really like the 35mm for video. Now, I must say that for photography, I could do with just a 35mm and I'd be happy. For video, I don't know. I mean, I really like the focal length, but I feel for video, having just the 35 limits your creative possibilities a whole lot more than for photography. Of course, that has nothing to do with the quality of this lens. It's just that for video, it's not that amazing all-round focal length like it is for photography, but it could just be me. Everything I shot with this lens looks really good, so no complaints there. The only slight negatives, there is some focus breathing, so zooming in and out while focusing on objects really close or far away. And there's also some green flaring when pointing directly at a light source. Also for photography, by the way. It doesn't really bother me, but for some of you, maybe this is important to know. Oh, and something interesting to know, when your camera is in photography mode, the autofocus motor of this lens is pretty loud. And if you're a videographer, you might say, "Whew, not usable for me." But actually, when you turn your camera in video mode, the autofocus slows down and the motor is super quiet. So this lens was built with videographers in mind. That's important to know. And I guess that's it for the Canon RF 35mm f1.8. It's the first RF lens I've tried, and it's one of the cheaper ones, but I don't mind using a cheaper lens if they deliver. And this one really does. My favorite 35mm is still the Sigma 1.4 Art, but this one comes really close. And maybe if you take the price into account, because it's a little bit cheaper, it's just as good. You know what I mean? Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you didn't enjoy this video, then hit the dislike button twice. See you in the next one.